How much do you think Elon Musk gets paid for an hour? Bill Gates or even Mark Zuckerberg? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. They don't even care. The thing the rich understand about money that most people don't is that working for a wage is not the way to build true wealth. I'm about to show you what school should have taught you about how the rich really view money and how, as a business owner, your focus needs to be on creating value and profit to build true wealth. And one crucial tip you're going to be able to take away today to start moving forward and stop working for a wage and build serious wealth. I'm Iannuzzelli. This is what school should have taught you. Let's get into today.
Everything school should have taught you in one place. With a property portfolio of over 17 million and an accountancy firm of over 16,000 clients, as well as being an accountant to some of the wealthiest people in Australia, Jeremy Iannuzzelli will be sharing his lessons on everything school should have taught you so you can build the life you want.
As an accountant, I get to see so many personalities every year. I get to see the spenders, I get to see the savers, and I get to see the true entrepreneurs. There is so much difference between them. I've got to try to blend in as much as I can to give them the right level of advice and also the right level of structure so that they can meet their goals. Now, I'm not going to say that I win every time, but a majority of the time I'm holding the bigger stick. But I want to share with you some common strategies that I, as an accountant, I explain to my clients, especially those in business, whether it's small, medium or large, the things they can do to really propel themselves in the right way. And the first thing is that your business money is your money. A lot of people say, don't worry about it, I'll pay it from the business. Don't worry about it, the business will pay it. You need to understand that if you're the sole shareholder or a majority shareholder in a company, potentially also a director as well, that cost that you're spending on your business, it's your money, it's your future wealth, it's your future dividend, it's your future money that you can lend to another company to acquire assets. So just because it's a tax deduction, just because you can pay it from the business, doesn't mean necessarily you should. The way that you need to be treating your business is still through a very frugal mindset. If you look at the way the Elons and the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates of the world worked, you would have seen in the very early stages of their life, they tried to scrimp and save every penny that they could, because they knew the value of that dollar. They knew that if they invested a little bit more into their company, invest a little bit more into themselves, that's where they saw the fruits of the labor. If you look at early stages of Jeff Bezos, for argument's sake, working from his garage, and he did it for years before he started to acquire capital from shareholders. So you, as small business owners or business owners of medium or large enterprises, you need to make sure that you're factoring in that every dollar goes a long way. One of the biggest things I see, which is quite crucial, is a lot of people pay themselves from their own company a very high wage. Why? Because they can. They're the boss. They give themselves a pay rise whenever they want. But what you need to understand that you have the ability to really manipulate the amount of tax that you pay through the amount of wages that you pay yourself. Now, I personally, with my own company, I try to pay myself a wage of about $135,000 plus super. I also do give additional superannuation contributions to myself each year, capping me out at the full $30,000. I want to make sure I get as much money in super as I can. But I've created a lifestyle for myself where I can live on $135,000 plus super, together with what my wife earns as well. Now, for many people, they may not have that luxury. They may have a higher non-deductible debt on their own home, or they may have high living costs with multiple children. But if you're in a position where you can control your lifestyle expenses and your lifestyle in a way that you can earn $135,000 plus super per year, that's going to give you the closest tax rate to what the business is paying and what you're paying as a personal tax rate payer. It's where you start to pay yourself $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year salary where you may not need to. And that's where you're donating a substantial amount of your wealth to the government. So I, as an Australian citizen, I thank you for your contribution to the economy, but you need to have a think about how much you are contributing. It always goes back to the old Kerry Packer saying, we're all for about paying tax, but we don't want to be donating too much money to these yogis because they're not spending it the right way. It's important and imperative to understand and identify what is your lifestyle cost, how much money you need to live quite comfortably, again, between yourself and your partner. If you don't, but just yourself only, and you need to pay that from your business. Now, you don't want to get into the trap of paying yourself too little, because then you'll start to find yourself having to draw money out of the company, which results in a Division 7A loan, which is a big no-no for any business owner. So pay yourself the wage that you need to be living comfortably to be able to make ends meet. But if you can keep a lot of your wealth within inside the company, that's going to be beneficial for you for two things. Firstly, the misconception out there that your Borrowing capacity, for argument's sake, if you're looking at buying a property, is purely just based on your wage. There are some unique policies from some lenders which will only look at the wages that you take from your business. But for the most part, majority of lenders will look at your group. They'll look at where the money is being earned, what profit is being derived. So essentially, they're looking at your wage plus the profit of your business. How I've been able to generate lots of borrowing capacity for myself as my business has grown is my wage has relatively stayed the same. But my wealth inside the company, the retained earnings, the profit that it generates each year increases. And I'm able to use that profit to formulate borrowing capacity. Because the way the banks look at it is that I have the ability as being a shareholder of that entity to be able to draw upon that money as a dividend if and ever I needed to. So again, you need to factor in that the bank can look at the entire group as a borrowing capacity facilitator, and that's going to give you an edge, because that means that you're having now only 25% or even 30% going towards tax, as opposed to potentially 40 or even 47%. Now, a lot of people ask the question, well, Jeremy, I've got all this money in the company. What do I do with it? That's where, if you can go back to our other couple of episodes, we spoke about company to company lending. You do have two options. If you've structured your company the right way, you can get those dividends out through potentially a trust, being a shareholder, and then out to other beneficiaries, which could result in you having money at a substantially lower tax rate other than just paying it to yourself. Or if you don't have that opportunity to be able to effectively distribute dividends to the family members and the beneficiaries of the deed, you do have the opportunity of doing a company-to-company loan. Very common across my client base. A lot of my clients are moving money from company A to an investment company B and then utilizing that money to go buy assets. Now, it is important to know that while there is no Division 7A issue between company-to-company lending, buying assets with inside a company does not give you a 50% discount. And there will be, and I've said on this channel before, tax at the tail. That tax at the tail is when you sell the asset with inside that company. That's where, unfortunately, you'll have tax on when you take the money out of the company as a dividend, and that potentially could be at a higher rate. It's also important to understand that when you're putting money from company A to company B, you're utilizing 75% or even 70% of that earnings. So for every dollar, 75 cents or 70 cents of that earning going towards investments, as opposed to you paying yourself a huge amount of wage and you're only then using 53 cents of the dollar to be able to invest into future assets. So you need to get that strategy correct. You need to be frugal with what you're doing and understand how much wage you need to be paying yourself to live comfortably and what you can do with the money in the entity moving forward. If that strategy locks in and you're dialed into a certain level of asset base that you want to create, that's where you're going to be one of the wealthy few that are able to use more money after tax to invest in more assets to grow more wealth long term. So it's how you structure your wage, it's how to structure your dividends, it's how to structure your future investment entities, which will dictate and determine the level of wealth that you have to be able to invest long term. So in summary, I just want to give you some of the basic things that we've touched upon today, but I think it's really worthwhile that you investigate this further if you think this is for you. So when your business is starting to do better and you're starting to earn more money, paying yourself a higher wage is not necessarily going to be the way to higher wealth. Putting your money into a separate entity or other sophisticated options through structuring, they're just some of the ways to help you minimize tax and continue building wealth with having more after-tax dollars going to more assets. One of the most important things for you to take away from this is that everyone's situation is different, and maybe a company-to-company loan is the right answer, or potentially filtering through dividends to a trust structure and out to the beneficiaries. My point is, you won't understand which outcome is the best for you until you play this out with a professional. But what I can say is that you need to understand what your lifestyle and living costs are so you can really dial in and factor in what wage do you need to be effective and efficient with your tax strategy. And the thing that you do now have that most people don't is the knowledge to even ask the question from your accountant or financial advisor. What should I be doing to best minimize my tax and have as much of my after-tax dollars going towards creating more wealth? Because as we all know, the bigger the denominator that we can grow, the better level of returns potentially we can have on a smaller percentage movement. I'm Jeremy Iannuzzelli. That's what school should have taught you. I'll see you next week.